Hello, my name is Armando, and in this video I'm going to continue with the creation of my ERP system, which is going to be an ERP API, and I planned to have a lot of um, elements, let's say, like a point of sale, a customer management system, a human resources system, the supply chain management, reports and analytics, invoice generation, inventory management, and financial management. And I created the boilerplate for the documentation using a YAML file, which I'm going to import into Swagger, which is an editor and a visualizer. And here I can visualize the YAML code that I created, and I can use this to know what I need to do with my API. So I have the planning here, and I can start coding with this in mind. So I'm not like I don't know the word. I don't know if that's a word like. Well, I can start planning then. I can plan the API, and using that plan, it's way easier. I'm not going to get confused with the ton of stuff that I need to do. I need to create a lot of routers, a lot of routes, a lot of handlers, but I won't get messed up because I have a plan, which is this documentation. I know what the parameters I'm going to use, and I know the type of schemas, the type of JSON files that I'm going to create or that I need to create in order to make this API work. So I already have some advancement. I think that I am inventing a lot of words. I am really sorry, but as you might notice, English is not my native language. Okay, so whatever. So what I have here is some handlers. Well, in this part, so I already made the create category handler, which is this one, and I know that I have to use a name, a description, a parent category, thumbnail, and some other values here, like the ID, a slug, a children category, and the created and updated fields. Okay, so I created that endpoint. I created that route in order to be able to make a new category, and I'm going to explain how it works. So what I do is to create a variable called input, where I'm going to well, this is of type product category, which is a struct that I created with the elements that I want this struct to have, which are a GORM model, which includes the created at, updated at, and deleted at fields, And also it includes a metadata field. So if I need to create metadata, I don't have to declare it here, and this is created automatically using this GORM model. GORM being the ORM which I am using for this API. And also I declared an ID, which is an unsigned integer, and which is the one that I am using as the primary key. And I am also using a name, a description, a slug, a parent category ID, which it's optional, and I'm only going to use it in the case of these categories having a parent category. And in that case, I can show that categories when I make a get petition for this. And also this is going to have its children categories, which are of the same type like product category, and these are going to be arrays. And I also have a thumbnail, so in the case the person that's making the front end wants the categories to have a thumbnail, they can declare them using a string, so they can use like an address or a path in order to receive that thumbnail. And they can receive it like from a URL or from the local path. Okay, so that's the reason why this is a string. Okay, so coming back to the categories file, I declared the input having those fields, and I have this should be in JSON in order to transform this input being a struct with those fields, and checking if this JSON is well formed. And also, I mean, this does not check the JSON as such. I mean, I have to create the JSON file, which I'm going to send in a post petition, and this is going to verify that the JSON is well formed. And in the case that it's not well formed, it will return an error. Okay, so if this works, I'm going to create a slug, and in order to do that, I'm going to use a helper function that I created called generate slug, which is only a simple function or a simple method that converts the words into lowercase words, and it replaces the spaces with dashes. Dash is the word with this symbol. Okay, so it first converts the string into lowercase, and it also replaces all of the spaces with dashes, which I'm not sure if that's the correct word. Dash, dash, dash symbol. Oh, it's not a dash, so hyphen. Okay, so it uses a hyphen to replace spaces. Okay. Then it checks if there's an existing slug with like this slug, like the one that is recently created. And in the case that there's already an existing slug, like the one that we generated, it's going to return an error and a message saying that that category slug already exists. So in the case that well, in the case that there are no errors until here, it will check that if you use a parent category ID, this will check if that parent category exists, and in the case that it doesn't exist, it will return an error saying that the parent category is not found. And if there are any other errors, like an status internal server error, it will say that it failed to find a parent category. Also, after all of that, it will try or attempt to create the entry in the database. And in the case that something failed, it will return an error saying failed to create category. But in the case that everything works, it will return a status code 200, I think, saying, returning the input, which is the same information that we sent, but in this case it's going to be like a signal, meaning that the entry was already created and it was successfully created. Okay, so it's kind of simple, not very complex. It doesn't have a lot of validations, but it works. I don't know if I need to have another validation. If you think that I might or I can improve it, you can tell me and I'll see if I can implement your ideas. Okay. I also have a gate category handler which uses an ID which is received through the URL path, which is going to be called ID. The use of these names works because it's being checked here in the routes. So if I call this something different than ID, but I'm calling it ID here, this won't get any ID from the route because I am using a different key. Okay, so this key is going to be a string, which in this case it's not a problem because I can use that string to find the category I want using that ID. So I'm going to make a simple search where I'm going to query the parent category, the children categories, and look for the category that I am trying to find using the ID, okay, which is going to return an individual entry, which in this case is going to be a specific category in case it finds it. But in the case that there's no any existing category with that ID, it will return an error saying the category not found. And in the case of an status internal server error, it will return an error saying failed to retrieve category. And in the case that everything works, meaning that the ID is well introduced, is a number, and it finds all the things that it needs to find, it will return an HTTP status OK and an object with the category that it found. And we can try this in Postman. So I can, let me see which is the route for finding a specific category, which is categories / and the ID. So I can write something like this and put a number 1, change this to a get petition, and I am receiving the number 1 or the category with the ID 1. And I also can see that it have it have a parent category which I created in the past and some children categories. Okay, so this is for the get category handler. But what if I want to have a better search? In this case, I don't have like pretty good filters because I don't need them. Actually, I don't need any filter for this, but just for, let's say, educational purposes, I made a handler where I am able to search for all the categories using pagination. And for that, I am using query parameters. So the query parameters are like having this and having a page, something like this. So this is going to allow me to filter the categories list in one page, or showing the page 1 and showing also how many elements for page I want to show. And for that, I created 2 variables, one called page, which shows me the page that I want to see, and I am also able to limit the number of elements per page. Also, like I told you before, these params are strings, but in this case I want them to be numbers because I'm going to make some basic math in order to make this work. So the first thing that I need to do is to transform those variables into integers, which I actually can do directly there, but in order to make it more easy to understand, I made a new variable called pageInt. And I have a validation checking that the number is bigger than 1 because there is no page 0 or less than 0, and in that case it should return an error saying that that's an invalid page parameter. I made exactly the same for the limit, so I transformed that limit string into a number, and I verified that that limit is actually bigger than 1. Okay, so then I have some math in order to calculate where the I mean how many pages are in the pagination and how many elements are shown, and where's the page that we are actually, and to show exactly the elements that are meant to be there. Okay, and I also make a query for that specific search of the product category, and I also have this total variable which contains the number of total items per I mean for the whole search. So it says that the search contains, let's say, 10 elements, but that doesn't mean that those 10 elements are going to be shown at the same time, because that depends on the items per page and the current page. Okay. I also have a variable called categories, which is an array of product categories, and the query includes the offset and also the limit that I created, and it looks for the categories, I mean all the categories, and in the case that there's an error, it will return an error saying that it failed to retrieve all the categories. And lastly, I structure the response in order to show it here in a JSON response. So I'm going to test it, and for that I'm going to use my documentation where I can make those queries. Well, it doesn't work here, I don't know why, but I am able to generate the CURL URLs, okay, or the CURL command in order to test it with the terminal, which I can actually do here. So I can do something like this, and it says page not found. So I'm going to see why this doesn't work. And that's because I have to use something that I called categories/filter. And as you can see, it returns a list of categories based on the actual pagination, which includes 10 elements per page. But I can limit that, like using 2 elements per page, for example. And as you can see, the response is way shorter. And also I can modify that in order to search for the second page, and as you can see, it's returning different elements instead of the previous one. And you can also verify that if I make the same petition, I should have the same response. Yeah, and if I modify it, like searching for the page number 3, I'm looking at different categories. And this is not a great way to see for the responses, but I can use something like this. And I can, and this is going to show the structured JSON response. Okay, so let's limit here to only 2 elements per page, and as you can see, I can only see at 2 elements at the same time. And also I have this pagination field, including the current page, which is the, let's see here, which is the page int, and also the items per page, which is the limit. Items per page is the limit, and also the total items, which is the total, which I calculated here. And also, I mean, not here, I just created the variable here, but it's counted in the query, directly within the query. And this sends this count to this variable. And also I have the total pages, which is 5, and that is because I said that I only want 2 elements per page, and in this case, because I only have 10 elements, there only will be 5 pages. Okay, so if I try to go to the 6th page, I shouldn't be able to receive any response. Okay, so that's it for the categories handlers that I made until now. And I can create a new handler in order to understand what's happening here. So what I am going to do is to create a new element. Let's call it, let's say it will be a put method. So I'm going to create here, I'm going to write category.put, and the relative path is going to be this and an ID, and also the handler is going to be called update category handler. And like, because of the fact that I haven't made it yet, I'm going to create a new handler. I'm going to use the dependency injection pattern that I've been using in my whole project, and I'm going to create the handler. This will receive the gene context, and like you already saw, I need to use an ID, which I'm going to receive from a param, from a URL param, and I'm going to call it ID, which is this same path. Also, I need to initialize a variable called category, or like any name that I want, which is of type product category. And if error, it will look for a category using the ID. And if there's an error, it will return some messages. So if if the error is the ORM not finding the record or the entry, it will return a message with JSON with the a status not found, and a message saying error, category not found. And if there's another error different from the entry not being found, it will return an HTTP status internal server error and a message saying that it failed to retrieve the category. And it should stop here. And also I need to have an input. So I mean, if the category exists, I can modify it. So in order to do that, I need to have an input of the same type, which is going to be data.product category. And it will parse the JSON body and assign it to the input variable. So should be in JSON, because I won't try to parse any other type of element. And I'm going to send it to the input variable, and if there's an error, it will return an HTTP status bad request and a message from Gene saying that there's an error. And because of the fact that I don't know what errors might be shown here, I'm going to return the error as such. And I can't modify automatically the slug. So if the name of the category is different from the original one, if this is different from the actual name, I will need to generate a new slug with my function that I created earlier, that I already explained, and this will receive as the input. This will receive the name as an input. And this will work like a placeholder. to receive the input.slug and the ID. To find an existing category. And if there's an error, it will return I also need to check if there's a parent category, and also if I want to assign a new category, and if this is different from 0, I need to assign it. But in the case that the parent category doesn't exist, it should return an error. So if I include a parent category and it's different from 0, and that's kind of the same that I did here, because it will look for the parent category, and in the case that it doesn't exist, it will say that it is not found. And if there's an error, an internal server error, it will return failed to find parent category. And last but not least, I'm going to try to update the category. Using the input And in case of an error, returning the internal server error code and a message. And in the case that it actually worked, it should return an HTTP status OK and the category itself with the new values. So in order to test it, I already have the route, which is this one, and I'm going to make some modifications. So I'm going to use this and categories. I'm going to modify the number one category in case it exists. I'm going to make a patch, no, a put petition, and I need to modify the, I need to have this. I'm going to call this bebidas, like drinks. I'm going to name it with English names like energetic drinks. And I'm going to ignore the use of the parent category and energy drinks, let's say. So I'm going to restart the server and then I'm going to send this. So if I look for the first element using a get petition, I should receive the same information, which is the ID1, having energetic drinks as the name, having canned products as the description, and having a news log being energetic drinks with a hyphen. And in the case that I want to change the parent categories, I can use something like, let's see, need to use a comma here, something like number 2. I hope it exists. Need to modify it using this. And now the parent category is the number 2, and I'm going to check that. And it actually worked. I have the number 2 as the parent category, which is appetizers. But if I modify this and I use 4, it should be something different than appetizers. So I'm going to again check this, and now it's foods. Okay, so that's pretty much it for now. I hope you liked the video, and I'm going to try to make this more complex. I'm going to try to show you all of the routes that I plan to do, to create, and to explain important concepts and basic concepts like the URL params, the query params, and so on. Okay, so thank you for watching. I hope you comment, like, and subscribe. And I see you in the next video, which I don't know where it's going to be because I have a lot of work, and I also have no free time. And the time that I have, I use it to watch Instagram. So I'm going to try not to watch Instagram and to create more videos in order for you to see how Golang works and how I create a new API using Golang. So I see you in the next video. Bye.